Good evening, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us. I'm Will DuPree here in the KXAN live studio. We have been covering so much big news today, including a decision made by the Austin City Council earlier today. Now, the City Council unanimously approved a brand new budget. And ahead of this very consequential vote, much of the discussion centered around redirecting millions from the police department to other areas after protests and calls for reforms. Now, we know exactly how much the council has agreed to move from Austin Police now, so we want to be able to break that down and discuss what exactly happened. So joining me this evening, we're very fortunate for this, is our illustrious reporter, Alyssa Goard. Alyssa, I am very serious about that word and that description because you have done such a great job tracking this discussion, tracking all the proposals that the council members have put up, and following these meetings. So we appreciate you being here this evening.
Thank you, Will. That's really kind of you. I'm happy to be here.
I first want to just dive in because there's a lot to cover with this. So let's dive into the numbers first. How large is this budget that was approved today by the City Council?
It's huge. So it is the money that the city uses to run the entire government. So it's colossal in terms of dollars and in terms of the amount of detail that's included in it. So this is the budget for the fiscal year 2020-2021 that goes into effect October 1st. And the budget itself totals $4.2 billion. And it includes everything that makes up the city budget, so all the departments within the city. But the part that's received the most attention, Will, this year was the funding for policing and public safety.
So in particular, we want to talk about this $150 million number. So this is going to be implemented over a year's process. Talk about how that all breaks down just for the police department, this $150 million figure.
Right. So the action that council approved today would start the ball rolling for moving $150 million out of the Austin Police Department and into other areas. But as you mentioned, Will, that wouldn't all happen right away. That would happen through a process over the course of the next year. And Will, I know that we had our KXAN team make some cool graphics, and so maybe we can pull one of those up right now.
Yeah, the one that is showing right now is the $150 million breakdown.
Excellent, excellent. So yes, so you can see the $150 million, that's the total amount over the course of the year. And the top amount, the $20 million of those dollars would immediately be removed from APD's budget on October 1st and then transferred to other areas of public health and safety that the council has decided are a priority, such as emergency medical services and permanent supportive housing. And then there's an $80 million amount, and those dollars, it wouldn't be cut, but rather they would be put under other departments besides the Austin Police Department. And that would include moving things like forensics and the 911 call center so that they're housed under other city departments. And again, city staff expects that process for those $80 million to take the full year. And then finally, there's the $50 million that will be redirected from the Austin Police budget over the course of this year into a new fund. It's called the Reimagine Safety Fund, which would be used to support what council calls alternative forms of public safety and community support. And this is all part of a larger transition in the city of Austin looking to change how we handle public safety. And so the council expects that there are going to be some needs to fund things that maybe we've never even thought of before. And so that fund is there to help with that transition in whatever way is needed.
One of the most immediate changes will affect the police department's cadet classes. What is going to happen with those in particular now?
That's right, Will. This budget in particular that was passed today does not provide any funding for Austin Police cadet classes. And that means that cadet classes that were originally planned for November 2020, March 2021, and June 2021 will not happen. However, there is a caveat. The council did leave open the possibility that maybe one or two of those cadet classes may be able to continue as normal if the new training curriculum for them is ready in time. So there's some context to this. You may remember that allegations of racism and homophobia within the Austin Police Department actually prompted a third-party investigation as well as a city audit of the Austin Police Training Academy. That city audit is actually not finished, and it's not expected to conclude until November 9th. At least that's what APD told us this week. And so council members think that delaying these cadet classes will allow time to create new curriculum for the academy after that audit is done. So for now, it appears that November cadet class is off the table. However, council has left open the possibility that other cadet classes could continue into the future. And as we just heard from Austin Police Chief Brian Manley, he had mentioned that some of those cadets for that projected November class had actually already moved to Austin and were planning to get involved with the department. And so the department is working to try and either get them alternate employment within the department or support them in other ways while the cadet class situation continues to unfold.
Another thing I want to ask you about is how much did this budget approved today stray from what the city initially had put out there? From all those things that the different departments had said they would like these things funded, how similar are the two? I would imagine not very at all.
It's quite complicated because many of the speakers who have been coming and speaking up at the council meetings have had specific dollar amounts that they've each wanted to see removed from the Austin Police Department budget. And I think the easiest way I can explain this is by starting with back where the city was this spring. And so earlier this year, city staff, who is working to create the budget, had proposed a budget of around $440 million for the Austin Police Department that was supposed to be approved this August. But after council members called for change as well as community members, city staff then came back in July with a new budget. And that new budget allocated $434 million for APD, which is actually right around the dollar amount for the APD budget the previous fiscal year. So after all the changes that were adopted by council today, the Austin Police Department budget for this fiscal year that starts on October 1st will be around $290 million, the city said. So the original plan on July 13th was to have APD's budget this fiscal year starting October 1st be $434 million. But after the changes that council has approved today, now the expectation is that budget that starts on October 1st for the department will be around $290 million. Does that help answer your question, Will?
It definitely does. Another thing that we want to touch on is, this is a big decision for the city, no matter what year it is. However, this one is so different because so many people were engaged in sharing opinions. Talk about what led up to this moment. I mean, we had protests, people participating in the city council meetings, many of them for the first time in their entire lives. What's led up to this moment?
Well, Chief Manley, who just spoke at a press conference, was saying that in his 30 years with the Austin Police Department, the changes that are being discussed and implemented now are things that he has never seen before. These are fundamental shifts to the department. And I think, like you said, it's important to talk about how we got here. So in Austin, as with so much of the country, demonstrations sprung up in Austin in protest of George Floyd's death at the hands of Minneapolis police officers. And similarly, there were also protests that were sparked by the death of Mike Ramos, who was shot and killed by Austin police on April 24th in an incident then as well. And as we've seen in Austin, there have been continued demonstrations and rallies that have happened on Austin streets since then, people calling for change through actual physical protest. But people have also been getting involved with politics here in Austin. Many of the council offices that I've spoken with said that they have seen people from the public reaching out to them in unprecedented numbers, more and more people calling and writing letters and writing it on social media. In addition to that, there's been really high participation in Austin City Council meetings. And it probably helps that those council meetings are now being held virtually because of the pandemic, but there really have been a significant number of people who've been coming to express their opinions about their budget. And as I've reported previously, the numbers of people who showed up to express their opinions about this year's budget dwarfed the number of people who showed up to talk about the budget last year. And so we're seeing a really, really high level of public interest, public participation. And a majority of the people who have been participating in those meetings have been calling for reforms to the way that we do policing, have been calling for changes as they relate to racial justice and changes to public safety generally. And a lot of those conversations ask city leadership to re-examine what are the things that we want to see in our community that make us safe? What are the things that we want our police department to be doing? And what are the things that we don't think are the correct jobs for them to be doing? And so those have been the questions at the heart of all of these really tense meetings that we've been having over the last couple of months. And there have been specific community groups. Austin Justice Coalition, for example, called for a cut to the Austin Police Department budget of $100 million. Grassroots leadership called for a 50% reduction of APD's budget. And so many of these groups have suggested that by removing money from the Austin Police Department and reallocating it to other areas that also promote public health or public safety, that the community might be able to imagine another way that public safety could exist here in Austin. Austin Council actually passed reforms in June unanimously, which set the stage for everything that we're seeing right now with the budget. And the city manager responded to that. He adjusted the police budget that came out in the proposed budget in July, opting to cut vacant positions in the department and then creating an overall vision that he's called, with this buzzword you may have heard of. The term he's been using is called reimagining public safety, which basically means completely rethinking how we do public safety in Austin and what public safety means to our community. Well,
and that's really the next step. So the vote happened first on the budget, but now the onus is back on the city manager's office.
Right. The city manager's office has a lot of work to do. And the city manager has been very clear with the council the types of changes that the council and the community members have been calling for will take a while to roll out in their entirety. As part of this vision for reimagining public safety, the city manager has called for assembling different community groups and different stakeholders, different city departments, and different leaders within the city to be meeting together in the coming months to come up with a vision for what Austin wants for policing, and to keep asking the questions to the community about what we want public safety to look like in Austin. And the city manager is expected to report back to the council no later than March 2021 to amend the budget again after the public has had more of a chance to weigh in. So really, while the budget was approved today, this is just one step in what looks to be a much longer vision about how to fundamentally shift the way that public safety operates in the city of Austin.
So much left to cover, obviously. We want to touch on, though, that the police chief, in this discussion, he is remaining at the helm of the department. During his press conference just a few moments ago, maybe 30 minutes ago at this point, he had said that he plans to stay in that job and that he is looking potentially to lead the department as it makes these changes. What can you tell us about what he said at that time?
Yes. You know, Chief Manley received a lot of questions at the press conference about his role as the leader of the Austin Police Department. And some reporters asked him directly whether he intended to resign. And as you mentioned, he didn't say the words, I won't resign, but he also indicated that he intends to keep doing the work that's in front of him and digesting the budget that City Council has presented to him. And, you know, he also said to a question from one of the reporters that he does believe that he is a police chief who could roll out the types of changes that the community is calling for in this moment. And he tried to deflect some of the questions about his status in his position, trying to redirect the attention to the department as a whole and what resources his officers as a whole have. He kept reiterating that this is a discussion that's not about him, that it's about the department, and that he wants to continue to ensure that regardless of the situation and the context, that when people call 911 that there are people on the other line who are ready to dispatch and ready to send people out to respond in the way that we need them to in the community. And Chief Manley also mentioned that related to this budget, the largest immediate impact will be staffing. And
right.
So police leaders will have to assess what exactly all these changes mean and then compare them to how their officers are staffed currently and see if they need to make any changes going forward. And the budget is a really, really complicated process and a complicated document. And so I don't expect there to be any immediate answers about that because there's a lot to dig into there.
Yeah, and the chief did mention that they may have to redirect people within the department who might be placed with like a specialized unit or have some other type of assignment and move them to patrol because they are experiencing this now reduction in 150 positions because of the budget passed today. However, he did want to assure the community that if they call 911, an officer will still respond. And I think that that's been a big criticism in this talk about what kind of funding the police department will get, is that people were worried about that.
Right. And I want to clarify something there because these numbers are really complex and I have seen some misreporting of this online already. But the latest information that I got from the city is that for what was approved in the budget today, the budget today eliminates 150 vacant police officer positions. So these are positions that were allocated in the budget but had not been filled. So 150 of those vacant police officer positions would be eliminated. And that includes 70 vacancies cut in the proposed budget plus another 80 cut by council in the amendments that council made to the budget that was approved. And so what the city told me is that with the eliminations of these positions, that will mean that the Austin Police Department is projected to begin the fiscal year on October 1st with 0 unfilled sworn positions. And so the way that City Manager Crunk has been referring to that is that these decisions don't mean a reduction in boots on the ground, so the number of like actual officers. This is a reduction in vacant positions. However, what this could mean is that when there is attrition to the department, so somebody retires or quits or whatever, then slowly the numbers in the department would go down. But at least as of the time of this budget, what the city says is that it would mean that there would be 0 unfilled positions at the start of this fiscal year.
All right, everybody. That is Alyssa Goard, one of our most talented reporters here at KXAN, breaking down everything that happened today and all that was leading up to this moment with the Austin City Council approving the next fiscal year's budget. Alyssa, thank you so much for being here and breaking all that down and answering all these questions. I know there is so much more to cover, and we are in good hands with you doing it.
Thank you so much, Will. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you, Alyssa. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you all, everybody else who has been watching this stream. If you would like to find out much more about the process today, what is included in the budget, we have a full comprehensive article written by Alyssa on our website. That's KXAN.com. And if you downloaded the news app, it's on your phone as well, KXAN News app. Thanks again, everybody, for watching. I'm Will DuPree here in the KXAN Live studio. We thank you for joining us. Please, everyone, stay safe and healthy, and if at all possible, still at home.